Wider and stronger legislation is needed to effectively deal with the threats faced by whistleblowers in the country. This is word from SIU head advocate Andy Mothibi, who gave a keynote address at the Anti-Fraud and Corruption Dialogue held earlier this week. Under the theme, Protecting Whistleblowers, industry professionals discussed what needed to be addressed in the fight against fraud and corruption. A call was made for the effective implementation of policies aimed at preventing misconduct. And for more on this, we're now joined by head of the technical unit at SAIGA, Kgothatso Moako, and she joins us now via our video link. Kgothatso, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. Now, you held an anti-fraud and corruption dialogue. Maybe if you can just tell us more about that. Would you say that this dialogue was effective?
Absolutely, absolutely. Good evening, and good evening to your listeners as well. This dialogue was very much effective because we deliberated not just only on defining what is a whistleblower and coming up with the legal framework and regulatory frameworks, but we also deliberated on the entire ecosystem, looking at other factors that could impact on the whistleblowers and entirely corruption as a whole. So it consisted of different professionals, it was lawyers, it was accountants coming together, auditors, academias, deliberating on this issue that has become a social ill.
And what would you say is the biggest takeaway from holding this dialogue? I mean, from you just telling us more about it, it seems as if, there was a lot to discuss, also ranging from issues around corruption to whistleblowers and the roles that they play. But for you, what was the biggest takeaway?
And obviously, we had to deliberate and really interrogate the legal frameworks for whistleblowers protection in South Africa in particular, to say, are these frameworks effective? What are the key features of these frameworks and where are the gaps? How can we possibly ensure that every role player is taught on how to utilize these pieces of legislation properly? We also deliberated on what does it mean to disclose information? What is a whistleblower? What does it mean to disclose and create an alert about any unethical conduct that takes place in the workplace or in society as a whole? And then we also looked at the shortcomings, which is the limitation these pieces of legislation has. And we actually deliberated on the fact that this legislation, this is the PDA I'm speaking about, Act of 2000, speaks to employees, but it does not include individuals such as contractors, as well as he also said the burden of proof lie. The burden of proof lies on the whistleblower itself, which makes it very difficult for the whistleblower to prove retaliation. And we also said, what can we do as experts, as fraud specialists in this era, and how can we assist the system in ensuring that we actually put rigor to our frameworks, to our legislation? We look to the Constitution to say, let's go back to the basics. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. It constitutes how should whistleblowers be protected. What is the right of a whistleblower? Does it guarantee the right to freedom of expression as is stipulated in Section 16 and access to information as is stipulated in Section 32? No. And then we went on and looked at other pieces of legislation such as the PRECA to say, is the PRECA making any form of provision for whistleblowers to be protected? The PRECA, we found that it's also not really clear. It just says it encourages reporting of corruption and provides measures to protect those who come forward with information. But it's still not telling us how should innocent individuals be protected, and how really should we, what other measures should we put in place to make sure that people are encouraged to come forth with corruption.
And the discussions that were held, during this dialogue, what would you say then is needed for South Africa to deal with corruption effectively? I mean, you keep on touching on the issue around legislation. It seems as if we really don't have a legislation problem here. The policies are there. So what is effectively needed to deal with corruption effectively?
So we said that although there is legal frameworks that exist, but perhaps we needed to look at this from another angle, because as I said, that corruption is now become an endemic. It is a social ill. Maybe we have to look at it from a societal perspective and look at it from what social science is actually telling us about this phenomena. We said, let's look at cultural barriers and weak implementation of this legislation. What are cultural barriers that are put forward, the stigmas against whistleblowing, and also where it may be seen to be betrayal as opposed to public service? And we also said that law enforcement is inconsistent, and we need the law to be consistent. We need speedy recovery when it comes to prosecution, and that will maybe perhaps encourage whistleblowers to come forth. And another angle that we looked at the life of a whistleblower. Once you have whistleblowed, what happens to you as an individual? What happens to your career? What happens to your family? What happens ultimately to your livelihood? So we said we really need to rigor legislation once again to make sure that it protects the extent of your family members as well. And also there is the element of anonymity that we really, really need to stress on, to say when a call has been made and I said I would like to remain anonymous, that indeed I become anonymous, that we do not focus on the person and the identity of a person, and really, really, really become very intentional and deliberate in ensuring that we do not disclose this person and we do not advocate for silence, because what we've seen happen in the past is that a person's identity will be revealed, and that is in a way that's why I'm speaking about the cultural barriers. We're sending a message to say, if you're disclosing information, in a way you will be punished. So we are silencing whistleblowers.
All right.
So really, we've got to over and above strengthening legislation. Yeah.
And before I let you go, Kgothatso, you keep on touching on whistleblowers and the importance of whistleblowers in our society and the role that they play when it comes to rooting out corruption. Maybe just to, just highlight how important they are, especially when usually they are at the center of, these investigations, and, the damage that is also done to their lives, like you're saying, when there seems to be a witch hunt for whistleblowers.
Yeah. They're absolutely very important. Remember, if you go back to the legal definition or broader definition of whistleblowing, it's saying that it is reporting on wrongdoing of unethical activity or unlawfulness that has taken place. It is also saying it is meant to create an alert that can be used to then be reactive and investigate and be robust in responding to a crime that has possibly occurred. So without this person coming forth and creating this alert that we are talking about, we wouldn't know where to even look. We wouldn't know what to do, where to start. An investigation is triggered by an alert that comes through and disclosure of information. So we really, really need these people in the society, and we really need to improve on educating people, the public, on the importance of this person or this beacon that is coming forth and saying, I've seen crime. We also need to start being very vocal about this issue, to say when you come forth to create an alert, it is not a shame that you have to carry. It is not, you will not be disadvantaged in any form or shape, because the PDA, or rather the Protection of Disclosures Act, says that an employee or even an individual should not in any form be now disadvantaged because they've come forth to report in a matter. Therefore, we will be promoting a culture of transparency and accountability, and also ensuring that there is leadership commitment. People will be held accountable, an alert will be created, we will respond, and investigations will take place and prosecutions will happen, and essentially we'll be solving a whole lot of social ills that exist as a result of funds that are not utilized properly or as a result of corruption taking place. All
right, Kgothatso, thank you so much for your time and for that insight this evening. That is Kgothatso Moako, the head of technical unit at SAIGA. They're talking to us about that very important dialogue, the anti-fraud and corruption dialogue, which took place, of course, also there centering around the importance of whistleblowers and the protection of whistleblowers.